I told Alex to lose my number. That is what the A's GM said at the winter meetings about Alex Anthopoulos, talking about the Braves and A's recent trades of Sean Murphy and Matt Olson, that pretty much everyone unanimously agrees the Braves absolutely fleece the Athletics, which pretty much everybody does. It's pretty much our 4A club. Whenever we need some talent, we just ring up the A's GM, David Force, and say, hey, man, who you got for us? And we just take their all-stars and then extend them. How you like them apples, Chase?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing when you think about what the Braves gave. And listen, you'll listen to GMs talk about, how these working relationships develops. And most of them will tell you and say, hey, I don't really want to fleece you, right? Like those players are no longer on the Braves. It's not like Christian Pache being a great player affects the Braves anymore. Like it wouldn't matter if he was a great player or a bad player. So they don't really appreciate it when they fleece another team. Now, it's just unfortunately the way it turned out. And listen, I've talked about it at length when you talk about AA. This guy knows who to hang on to, and he knows who to give up. And you've seen these guys come up through the Brave system, the Acuñas, the Albies, the Harrises, the Striders, all of these guys that were mentioned at trades when the Braves were turning this corner in 2018. Even Soroka, obviously the injuries battled him. The Braves weren't willing to give up any of those guys, and they were mentioned in deals for JT Realmuto and other big-name stars. Jose Quintana rings a bell when Ozzie Albies was on the table for that. The Braves have hung on to all those guys, and they've turned into stars. And all the guys that they've traded outside of William Contreras have turned into absolute bums. And it's kind of funny that in that trade, William Contreras ended up going to the Brewers instead of the Athletics. But at the same time, I don't think Alex Anthopoulos was sitting there saying, oh, we need to get a third team involved. Like, you could have had William Contreras. Like, that's on you, buddy.
Yeah, and I think this goes without in any industry that deals in an ideal world, not to be a contrarian, deals in an ideal world benefit both sides. Both parties walk away thinking they got something they wanted. And for that reason, that both sides will potentially come back for a future deal. Now, obviously, this quote was made in jest. It was just a joke. But, I mean, I think there is some truth to it that he's like, none of the trades I've made have really worked out with Alex Anthopoulos. That's not to say that these players weren't going to succeed in Atlanta system. Oakland has developed some very good players. They just don't ever pay them. The Chapman, the Olsons, the Murphys, they produce plenty of talent. They just don't pay them. They trade them, and they just do this Moneyball system over and over and over again. The next deal just might not be with the Braves because, Forrest says, they haven't worked out much for them.
Well, and it's not a great look for Alex Anthopoulos, when he's trying to deal with other teams either. It's just like when you see a swindler and a swindler shows up and knocks on your door, you saw him, what he just did to that guy. I don't want you. I'm not even going to take the risk that you're going to do it there. So everyone, when they're dealing with the Braves, is going to look very cautiously and know the extent to what the chance this prospects that they're trading for has of hitting. So it doesn't just affect, the potential deals with Oakland. It affects the potential deals with everybody because everyone just saw what you just did to another organization. So it does make those working relationships undoubtedly harder. And speaking of just how much of a wizard Alex Anthopoulos has been, we know about all the long-term contracts and everything, but talking strictly on trades, he is hitting at a 67%. That's 2/3. 2 out of every trades, he is basically winning over the other team. That's the highest rate of any GM in the majors. And we can talk about the Murphy and the Olsen, but don't think about 2021, the greatest deadline in the history of this organization, getting Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, and Adam Duvall for nothing. None of those prospects that they traded, some of them are out of baseball right now. That is how much he swindled them. And then you could go to Joe Jimenez. Now that trade looks a little bit better for the Tigers, but there are a number of trades, the prospects that we have given up and all the trades since Alex Anthopoulos became the GM outside of William Contreras. I can't think of one guy that I'm like, well, dang, we really missed there.
Raciel Iglesias, Pierce Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on where you just think, how does this guy keep doing it? 2021, it just so happened that it ended in a World Series, but more often than not, you just said it. 2 out of every 3 trades works out in the Braves' favor. That's absolutely nuts. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
And when you think about it in terms of just like the big trades, all the big trades seem to have worked out. I think probably the 1/3. I can't even think of the 1/3 because they're probably so small. That wraps up our show for this evening. Thank you guys for joining us on this Wednesday. We will be back with you on Thursday.